Danmirr Consultants and Professional Advice Bureau present Achievers.
Dream of fame and success, but not all our dreams come true. What makes our achievers' dreams come true? Our achiever today is Sathnam Sanghera, award-winning journalist and the writer of the very celebrated book, The Boy with the Top Knot. Let's talk to Sathnam about his new book. Hello, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Please take a seat. Small-town Punjabi boy becomes a big-time author, writer of the celebrated book, A Boy with the Top Knot, shortlisted for the Costa Book Award. Welcome to our show, Sathnam.
Hi, thank you.
I must say, by the way, I was quite pleasantly surprised because, when I heard your name and saw your book, and we started doing your research, I didn't expect you to be this young.
Oh, really? Most people say I'm much older than they think. But,
really?
No, thank you.
No, honestly, I thought it was probably some 50s. I thought you were going to be some person in your 50s or something, because I hadn't seen you.
All right,
and then
okay.
obviously you log on to your website and there's a really trendy guy wearing a complete black suit and with sand and there's an ocean at the back, and it's quite a cool picture. Who took that?
Oh, well, God, I went on my first ever beach holiday for an article I did for the Times, and we went with a photographer and spent 2 days taking pictures. So the picture you saw was probably me in a suit.
Yes.
Actually standing in the Red Sea.
Yes.
And it looks very cool, but I can't actually swim. So I was actually nearly drowning when that picture was taken.
Now, Sathnam, you're a columnist for the Times. You're also a feature writer. You have won various awards in journalism. The Press Gazette has said that you're one of Britain's top 50 columnists. What attracted you to becoming a writer?
To be honest, I never really wanted to be a writer. I never really had a clear ambition to be one. I think when I was young, I wanted to be a bank manager because my most successful cousin was a bank manager. But then when I was 15, I entered this essay writing competition, which was run by Michael Jackson's charity.
Really?
And my brother was a big Michael Jackson fan.
Yes,
and he asked me to enter, and I entered, and surprisingly, I won. And the prize was to go to LA and see Michael Jackson perform at the Super Bowl, which I did. But when I came back, my local paper said, do you want to write something? Which I did. And that's when it all started. I wrote that piece, and then I wrote something else, and then I thought, actually, you know what? Maybe I want to be a writer. And this is why I think it's really important for kids to have role models and for them to see people in different careers. Because if you don't know people who do things like what you do or what I do, how will other people ever follow in your wake,
So the banker became the writer.
That's right, yes.
And you think it was accidental. It wasn't something you thought, I want to write.
No, it just happened. And actually my A-levels, I did maths as well as English. And so I think I still had that split.
And you were quite good because you used to collect the little pennies to get your Mars bar.
Actually, yeah, one of the many sad things I did when I was a kid is I set up my own bank. And
Yes,
I've written about it in my book.
I know you have.
And, but no, I was obsessed with maths. I think there's something about Indians and numbers that it's almost genetic, We all seem to be really good at maths. But then I suddenly fell out in love with numbers and suddenly started reading, and this whole new world opened up.
And, but the media spotlight came on you when you wrote your book, The Boy with the Top Knot. The book is about your life in Wolverhampton, focusing on your childhood and your early years in your life. So you enjoyed success at a very young age for a writer. I mean, we have big writers like Salman Rushdie and J.K. Rowling who really had to work at getting their work recognized. However, you enjoyed success at quite a young age. Were you surprised?
Well, it's all relative, isn't it? I mean, I guess I'd been working for 8 years at the Financial Times as a feature writer and a columnist before I wrote my book. And during that time, I had colleagues who'd written books who were even younger than me. So it's all relative, really, isn't it? I don't feel like I did it at a particularly young age. But I suppose I was forced into writing the book at a younger age than maybe I would have done, mainly because it was such a personal book, and I did it not because I wanted to write a book. I did it because I wanted to confront various issues in my family and in my personal life.
But did you expect the book to be such a success?
I don't think you sit there writing thinking, oh, you know, this book
But you
is
must have been
success.
surprised.
No, because you know what, writing's so hard and so lonely and so badly paid initially anyway.
How long did it take for you to write the book?
Well, I thought I'd get it done in 6 months, but it ended up taking a year and a half, if not 2 years. It's just so difficult. I don't think I would have done it unless there's a real personal imperative to have written it, you know. And I had this. The reason I wrote it is I come from a very traditional Sikh family.
Yes.
And they wanted me to have an arranged marriage, and I spent about 10 years going through the motions, and I think I must have had 20 or 30 arranged marriage meetings. But at the same time, I had this secret life in London where I dated unsuitable girls you know, who weren't Sikh. And I just got tired of all the secrets and the lies and the double life. And I just
got frustrated and you thought, you know...
That was awful. And I think...
I'm going to confront these issues.
I wanted to tell my parents that I wanted to marry someone I love. And so a book just seemed like a...
But of course, there's more to the book than just the issues of, you know, conforming to an arranged marriage. When one reads your book, you're quite surprised. One is quite surprised that even this generation had to go through quite a few things that one would think have changed now, but they haven't. You've mentioned that you were only 8 years old, living in Wolverhampton. Your parents were from a very strict Sikh Punjabi family, and till you were 8, you'd never gone to the cinema. You'd never used a telephone. You'd never bathed in a bathtub. You would still be using a bucket and a mug. You'd had no friends outside your sect, not even Jewish or Muslim friends, forget white friends. So pretty much you were still living in a village in Punjab.
Yeah, I basically had
UK.
a Punjabi village upbringing in the West Midlands, and that's because the Sikh community in Wolverhampton was a ghetto. You know, everyone was Sikh. The dentist, the shop owners, even some of the teachers. You know, and I mean, I was working in a factory for 50p an hour at the age of 10, and sometimes I'd work 90 hours a week. You know.
But at 8, when you were 8, you hadn't even had a book by then, like
to
read.
No.
So you know, thinking that you were raised, that you were in the UK, that just sounds surprising to some. Was it very difficult for you, or you didn't know any better?
But no, I mean, it does sound like Charles Dickens when you put it like that. But there were lots of really positive things about it. I felt very safe, and even though we had no money, it was very cozy.
But you had a lot of love. Now, but did you feel terribly isolated though, because you came from humble beginnings? Your mother was a brave woman. She was supporting a family of 5, which is 4 of you and your father. And she was working at the sewing factory. She didn't earn much, but whatever she did earn, she spent on you 4.
Yeah.
Was it difficult when you were living there? Did you feel that you felt very isolated from the larger community outside?
No, because I didn't know that a community existed. So you know what, my childhood was weirdly, despite the severe mental illness in my family and despite the poverty and despite working in a factory, was actually lovely. When I look back at it, I think of all the time I spent listening to pop songs with my siblings and so on, and it didn't feel impoverished.
Because
it's only looking back
despite the problems, you guys were still together.
Yeah, and the odd thing is, you know, my father's illiterate and my mum doesn't speak English. They were really keen on us reading, so even though we didn't have money to buy books, my father would take me to the library every 2 weeks or so, and that's quite a strange thing, but they valued education. And I was very lucky in that I had some teachers who picked up on me very young and developed me and got me into a really good school, you know.
Because there's one thing very common with all Asian parents, no matter how strict they are, and you know, they want you to adhere to certain rules and principles, but they want their children's life to be better than theirs.
Yes.
And I think probably in your case, your
Absolutely.
parents wanted that.
Yeah, and you go to working class communities in Britain now, and that's the problem, in that the parents don't want their kids to have an education that is better than theirs in particular, you know, and that's horrible, you know, really horrible. Education is the way you move on, it's the way you progress.
Now, but you were the rebellious one. You actually cut your hair, the top knot, when you were a teenager, quite earlier on in your life.
I was 14, yes.
And you cut your hair and actually threw it in the canal. Were you not scared of the repercussions?
Well, this is interesting because my mother remembers the whole thing completely different from the way I do. The way I remember it is that I went to the barber shop and had my hair cut secretly, and I was really tortured by it. And I thought about it for years, building up to that point. And I didn't enjoy, although I was very religious, I couldn't deal with the bullying that came with the top knot because I went to a very white school. But she says that, oh, she is always aware of that I was being bullied, and you know, she was very supportive of me having my hair cut. So it's weird how people remember things differently. And,
so why exactly did you cut your hair? Was it because of the bullying, or was it because you just wanted to have this trendy haircut and you wanted to fit in? Well,
it was the bullying, but also the downside of education is that you develop a brain of your own and a mind of your own. And although I was religious then, I didn't think that having a turban was going to define my relationship with God. I thought that I could be a good Sikh without long hair. So that was the revelation for me, really.
And also, Sathnam, in the book you've talked about a very important topic that a lot of Asian communities consider a taboo. That's schizophrenia. Your father suffered from mental illness. Your great-grandfather also suffered from the same illness. And then, unfortunately, your sister suffered from the same problem. How come you only discovered that your father was mentally ill at 24?
Yes, that is very odd. I mean, I found a note in my parents' luggage when they were going to India, which said, this man suffers from acute paranoid schizophrenia. And it does sound quite strange. How can you get to that age without realizing that your father and your sister suffer from one of the worst mental illnesses in the world? And it's a very complicated answer, but I think it's partly, I think I knew, but I chose not to admit it to myself. I think we choose, I think there's a quote from Nietzsche who says, ignorance is as structured as knowledge, in that we make a choice to ignore stuff that is very painful. I think my mum...
There's this self-protection?
Self-protection. More importantly, I think my mother made sure that I wasn't around whenever something horrible happened. She always protected me.
But could she predict something horrible is about to happen?
Because she grew up with them, and she was 16 when she got married to my father. So she understood the illness, and she knew when something was going to happen. And because I was the youngest, she always just made sure I wasn't around. And so I missed huge episodes that my siblings had to endure, unfortunately. And but the main thing is that mental illness is such a taboo. You know, if you suffer from schizophrenia and you're unemployed and you're Asian, you not only don't exist in the eyes of Western society, but you don't really exist in the eyes of your family, of your extended family, you know. So if you have the illness, people just ignore you.
And when you were growing up, Sathnam, because you found out pretty late in your life at 24, at 16, 17, you're quite aware. How did you find your father to be different, or you thought, you took it for granted, he's just different from the other dads?
I just took it for granted, and I was very independent. From a young age, I looked after myself, and I earned my own money, and I went to a school.
The little bank.
The little bank.
The little bank.
And I went to a different school from all my siblings, and my father. I think, in the way that people psychoanalyze things too much, I think people analyze fatherhood too much. I think kids basically want a dad who's around, and they don't particularly want anything more than that. You don't want endless karate lessons or ballet lessons and so on.
They want a hug there, a kiss there, and someone who's there.
Yeah, and my dad in that respect was brilliant. He was always there. He picked me up from school and dropped me off 4 times a day. I mean, he'd drop me off and he'd bring me back lunchtime and drop me off again. And he was physically always there, and he was always loving and always gentle. So he's been a great dad to me.
Sathnam, we're going to continue talking about the early years of your life after we take a short break. We'll see you after the break, and we'll continue speaking to Sathnam Sanghera.
At the same time, you're choosing to be there. You can flirt, but you can't flirt too much. You can reveal things about yourself, but you can't say too much in case that person tells their mum and they tell my mum. It is in the 70s, and they're stuck in a complete 1950s time warp, because those were the value of their parents.
Boys here have a mindset of rural India, and those marriages don't work out.
And then she tried to set us up.
Danmirr Consultants present Achievers.
Welcome back. Our guest today is Sathnam Sanghera, writer of the celebrated book, The Boy with the Top Knot. So Sathnam, we were talking about your life, and we were talking about the effect of schizophrenia on your life. Now, you were protected. Your mother made sure you were the youngest sibling. How did your other siblings suffer from this?
I should let them speak for themselves, really. But I think I was protected because I was the youngest. But,
because the reason I'm asking, Sathnam, is the reason we are dwelling on this topic is because this disease is a big taboo within
Yes.
the Asian society. I think what you've done is a service to the community. It's extremely brave of you to actually address these issues in your book. And there are lots of people who are probably listening to us today and who have read your book who will now perhaps look at it with a different angle and would want to deal with it. And so thus coming back to my question about how you felt your siblings coped.
Well, the thing I did when I wrote the book is that I got my siblings to read it, and I got them to take out anything they didn't agree with, and so on. And also got them to give me their points of view, so their points of view are included in the book. I think kids compensate if there's some tragedy or some illness in the family, and my brother's done very well in his chosen field, and I've done all right. And I think there's a phenomenon in America. Some psychiatrists have come up with a phrase called the super kid complex, where kids achieve a lot more than maybe they should do in order to make up for the kind of darkness and the tragedy in their family life.
You've certainly done extremely well, Now, in your book, you've also mentioned the complete frustration of having an arranged marriage. So from very earlier on, I think your mother drummed into you, you can only marry Sikh and only marry Punjabi.
Yes.
Now, when you were growing
And the caste, it had to be a Jat Punjabi.
Oh, it had to be a Jat Punjabi.
Yeah.
So when you were growing up, what were you thinking in your earlier years, when you reached puberty? Did you think that, yes, it will be a Punjabi girl? Or did you think, hang on a second, there's lots of blondes out there?
I didn't know any blondes at that age. But yeah, it was really drummed in. I mean, we weren't even allowed to look at girls. If our mum saw us, checking someone out, we'd get a good slap across the ear,
Yeah.
But
I'm sure you managed.
but things that's happened with my parents, and I think it's happened with a lot of British Asian parents, is that they've chilled out. And like my eldest sister's got the full-on arranged marriage thing. You've got to be married. And they're all married by the age of 20, all my siblings. My brother fell in love with his wife, but married very young. And by the time they got to me, I think they just got tired, and I just broke them down by just not doing anything.
But did you have a lot of rishtas? Did you go to a lot of houses?
Yeah, oh God, yeah, I did it all. I did the whole meetings in the house, the awkward dinner tea parties, did the Shadi.com thing. And
You did Shadi.com?
I did one date on Shadi.com.
How did that go? Come on, tell us a little about it.
What I struggle with arranged marriage meetings, I think they're great things, arranged marriages. But the way they work for us is they're kind of halfway between an arranged marriage and a date. So you have to be there, but at the same time you're choosing to be there. You can flirt, but you can't flirt too much. You can reveal things about yourself, but you can't say too much in case that person tells their mum and they tell my mum and whatever. So it feels like dating, but robbed of all the things that make dating fun, like the romance and the kissing.
Because after Cambridge, you went to London.
Yes.
And you lived this trendy lifestyle. You have a flat in Hampstead. You dress up pretty cool. So you've kind of grown and changed as a person. So I don't understand how arranged marriage would now fit in with you at this time in your life.
But I think the whole point of the book was to have it out with my mum and tell her that I wasn't going to have an arranged marriage, and I was going to marry someone I love. And I don't want to give away the end in the book, but we have a long conversation, which is the penultimate chapter of the book, and it's a happy ending.
It's a happy ending.
But I'm free now. I can
You're free.
marry
you can
whoever
breathe.
I like.
You can breathe. You can marry who you like. And now that you've written the book, do you feel you've had closure?
Yes, very much so.
Because you mentioned it was very therapeutic for you.
I think a lot of people write memoirs as a way of drawing a line in their life.
But you
And
wrote your
moving on.
memoir at a very young age.
Yeah, so I did that. But the weird thing is, then the book comes out, so you end up talking about it all the time.
Yes, so
So you end up reliving it all.
reliving it all the time.
And also, you forget a lot of the stuff you've written about, you know, because some of it's painful and some of it, you just can't walk around with all this stuff.
And but
as
then do you
baggage,
feel
know?
you said something in a certain way, but when someone is reading it, they're perceiving it in a completely different way, and then
I haven't had much of that. I haven't had
kind
many
of
people
lost
say.
in translation?
No, I haven't had many people say that wasn't how it happened. The weirdest thing is meeting complete strangers like you and them knowing so much about you.
And does that freak you out?
It freaks me out. And
Just
I think
a little bit?
if I have one regret about it, I spent so much time worrying about what my extended family and my family would make of the book and making sure everyone was happy. I didn't spend enough time thinking about how I would come across. And I think I kind of invaded my own privacy a bit. I would take a few things out.
And are your parents now proud of your achievements?
Yeah, I think they're very proud. It's very odd because, like I said, my parents don't read. But I think my mum's proud because she's been buying the book and giving it to her friends who can't read either. So I think that's a form of pride and
But just
approval.
because she comes across, she may not be literate, but she comes across as a very intelligent and switched-on lady. Because I
she
saw
reads
her
Punjabi.
interview.
Yeah, she's very articulate.
I saw her interview, and you could see the pride in her face, you know, when she was talking about you.
Yeah, but I'm incredibly proud of my mother. And the most satisfying thing about writing this book has been that people have heard her story, and she's just been through so much stuff. I mean, she was basically stuck with someone who was violently mentally ill at the age of 16 with none of her family around her. And not only did she save him, but then she had 4 children who've gone on to do, you know, things and have had a healthy life. And she's an incredible woman. So it's a great privilege to be able to pay tribute to your parents.
Do you feel that young British Asians today, you know, they suffer from an identity crisis? Because, of course, you know, their parents come from rural India. They are raised in a particular way with, you know, certain values, and then they're expected to live their lives, you know, within a larger community, the British community, with a completely different set of values. Do you think they get lost?
I think there is an element of identity crisis, and there have been so many books written about the identity crisis in British Asians and so on. But when I was doing the research for my writing, the most striking thing for me was how many British Asians are still continuing with traditions. A lot of British Asians still have introductions or arranged marriages, and a lot of them still go to the temple, the Gurdwara and so on. So the traditions are really continuing.
But have you realized that that perhaps because the British Asians who left India in the 50s or 40s, you know, they came to the UK still with the same value system. Now, India, between then and now, has completely progressed.
Yes.
So they are still stuck in a time warp. So what we have seen is that a lot of young boys who are raised here, if they decide to go and marry a girl from India, her mindset is completely different.
Yes.
Because that is of the modern India. And the boys here have a mindset of rural India. And those marriages don't work out.
No, it's very true. I mean, I'm about to go to Mumbai for the first time in my life. And I'm really excited because everyone talks about it like it's the Indian New York.
Yes.
But when I was growing up, India was somewhere you just didn't want to go to because you'd have to, you know, go to the toilet in a field and, you know, hang out with cows and have overbearing relatives who made you eat too much and so on. But now India is cool. So India has moved on for us, second generation people. And yeah, the danger is that with people who emigrated here in the 60s and 70s, that they're stuck in a complete 1950s time warp because those were the value of their parents. And they're trying to apply those values to second and third generation British Asians. But I do think British Asians are doing very, very well, you know, in the media,
No, they're doing very well. They've progressed so much in every field.
Yeah.
But also, I want you to talk to you, that do you think that these British Asians, or maybe even yourself, would have adjusted better had you kept going back and forth to India while you were growing up?
Possibly.
Because you would have been more in touch with reality.
It depends what your reality is. I mean, I feel when people ask me what my ethnicity is. I don't say British Asian, I don't say Indian, I don't say Punjabi. I say I'm a Londoner because there's so many nationalities here. And you could be anything, you know. You could be an Indian from India, or you could be British Asian and so on. I think we're too too obsessed with identity. And also the term Asian is utterly meaningless now. It covers China, you know, 1 billion people in India. And if you talk about British Asians, you've got the British Hindus and Sikhs, who are educationally and in monetary terms the most privileged groups in Britain. And then you've got British Bangladeshis, who have one of the lowest educational rates in Britain. So this one term covers the entire social spectrum. So it's almost, I think, meaningless to talk about British Asians nowadays. You've just got to be who you are.
Sathnam Sanghera, the Londoner.
That's right.
So what does the future hold for you?
Well, like I said, I'm not particularly ambitious, but I would. There were things I'd like to do. I've just begun work on a novel, so I'd like to do that. I'd like to carry on with my journalism. I'd love to set up a business.
Oh, the bank is still there.
It's still there,
lurking.
yeah. And I don't think you can work for 8 years for the Financial Times without being interested in business. And I would love to do something charitable where I helped kids from my kind of background, who had my kind of working class background, have the kind of amazing education that I did, because I think it's really, really important. So I'd love to find, you know, a charity or a project to work on.
If you were not a writer or a banker, who would you be?
God. I think writing's wonderful, but the bad thing about it is very lonely. And so I think of all the people I interviewed, the ones who seem happiest are those who work in the music industry, on the business side. Because I think you have creativity, you work with people, but you also have business, and you make much more money. So I'd probably go into the music business, I think.
Oh, Simon Cowell.
Yes, but with slightly more taste, hopefully.
Good one. So now our next round is going to be, it's called What's on Your Mind? And I'm going to ask you 10 very simple questions.
10?
Very easy questions.
All right, okay.
It's going to be 2 choices. You have to pick one.
All right.
Should we start?
Okay, that's easy. Okay, I can do that. Multiple choice, right?
Yes.
Of 2. Let's go.
Ready? Steady. Go. Turban or dhoti?
Turban.
French kiss or lambada? Mommy's watching.
Lambada.
If mommy wasn't watching?
Lambada.
Okay. There you go. Panthers or pythons?
Panthers.
Oysters or pearls?
Oysters, definitely.
Your bride, traditional Indian wedding gown or white wedding gown?
Blimey, that's telling, isn't it? An Indian one.
Mummy's definitely watching. Katrina Kaif or Shilpa Shetty?
Shilpa, mainly because I don't know who the other person is.
You know Katrina Kaif?
Oh, she's the very beautiful.
The fair
Oh, right,
one.
yeah, got her.
Sing is king?
Yeah, she's beautiful, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So which one?
Katrina.
Katrina, okay. Black Pride or BNP?
Black Pride.
Afro or crew cut?
Crew cut.
Gaddafi or Mubarak?
Blimey. Mubarak.
House music or opera?
House music.
Not bad. How was the round?
That's all right. That's pretty
Yeah.
easy.
You were apprehensive for no reason.
Well, the BNP Black Pride one was easy. You know. Do you go for a racist organisation or black rights?
Now, of course, before we say our goodbyes, I believe that, you know, you had a very close relationship with your mother. We always ask our friends and our guests that, you know, if you can if you can impersonate someone, or if you could sing for us, or maybe read some poetry, what would you like to do
Well,
today?
I've got a problem with this in that I can't sing. And I can't even do my old Wolverhampton accent because I was asked to do the audiobook of my book and I was fired from it because I can't even do that, you know. And my Punjabi is so bad that whenever I speak, my entire family just collapse in laughter. But you're going to make me say something in Punjabi, aren't you?
Yes, because otherwise, you know, there's going to be no cut. You'll just be sitting here, you know.
God, I don't know. What can I say? You tell me to say something.
Okay, what would your mother say to you right now? Okay,
Yeah.
How would your mother sum up this interview in Punjabi?
She'd say, "Badi soni kudi hai, only biyah kita," and then she'd try to set us up, and then I have to explain that she's got niana, And she's married, and then she'd be very disappointed. Is that enough Punjabi?
That's enough Punjabi. Thank you so much. It's been a complete joy interviewing you.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed a very frank interview with Sathnam Sanghera, journalist and writer. We hope to see you next week with our next achiever. Take care.
Danmirr Consultants and Professional Advice Bureau present Achievers.